Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for coming. I know that this was short notice. I particularly want to thank a number of people that are present. Well, actually, the only elected official is State Senator from the area, Brad Holman. Brad, will you stand up for a moment and be recognized? We've got some other important people that you will hear from in just a few minutes. But I do want to acknowledge the team that the governor quickly put together to address the issues we're going to be discussing this morning. Particularly the lead on that team has been Alfonso David, the counsel to the governor. With him has been Elizabeth De Leon Bargava, the Deputy Secretary of Labor, Dr. Howard Zucker, the Commissioner of the New York State Department of Health, and Mario Mussolino, the Acting Commissioner of the New York State Department of Health. This has been a team like no other that's been working night and day to get things done. Let me just indicate that I have a very special interest in this issue. I am both the Secretary of State who is responsible for the licensing of nail salons, but I'm also the head of the Office of New Americans that has a particular interest in protecting the rights of immigrants, and it also has an interest in fostering small business development on the part of immigrants. So this is a very important issue for me. I know that the governor shares my concern as regards all aspects of this issue. We've all read and heard the stories of the treatment of workers at nail salons. And as I indicated earlier, the governor very quickly put together the team under the leadership of Alfonso David that has undertaken a number of measures. And I think probably I can't recall any time in which we've been able to work so well together and get things done, because we knew we had to get things done. But I want to talk today about the latest aspect of our efforts, because we've already been working with the workers and communicating to them their rights, and we've also been working with the businessmen to explain to them their obligations. Today, we're launching what I would consider the other stool, the other leg on the stool, which is the public education campaign that needs to raise consumer awareness. Today, we're going to begin distribution of thousands of information cards that will explain what consumers should know and what they should expect when they visit a nail salon. We're also launching a new website. This website, www.ny.gov/nail-salon-safety, is going to provide more information about what we are doing, and more importantly, people who go on that website can communicate to us and tell us what they are learning and what they are seeing when they go and visit these nail salons. It's important to someone like myself. If there are unlicensed facilities and you know about them before I do, get on that website and communicate that to us. I can assure you, we will act on it. We also have a hotline that you can call during business hours, and if you call later, you can always leave a message. And as you can see from the posters behind me, the information card that we're talking about is going to have a series of questions that you can ask about the salons you patronize. And on the back is the Bill of Rights of salon workers. It will empower patrons to inquire about and express concern for the rights of these workers. Before I go on, this is just a quick story. Just earlier this week, I met a young woman who was just graduating from the Hunter College of Social Work, and she was introduced to me. I immediately thought she'd be very impressed meeting the Secretary of State, but she just looked at me and said, "Aren't you responsible for nail salons?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, I hope you're acting quickly and doing something about it, And then she said, "I wish there was something I could do." She really said that. I'm not making this up. She said, "I really wish there was something I could do." And I think the governor must have heard her, because he turned to us and said, let's bring in the consumers and let's bring in the people who patronize these facilities. With that, let me introduce to you a woman that every time I have an event regarding nail salons is standing right there with me. Someone who is a real advocate for the workers and the consumers of nail salons. I'd like to introduce New York City's public advocate, Letitia James.
Thank you to Governor Andrew Cuomo, who has been one of the key leaders in this effort to protect workers and educate employees in the nail industry. I also would like to thank the many advocacy organizations that have been working on this issue for a long time. Employees in New York's nail salons face hazardous health conditions and blatantly illegal labor practices. Too many of these workers are making their well-being for pennies and are unaware of the dangers. These unscrupulous practices have gone on too long, and it's encouraging to finally see some reform come to fruition. My office released a report last fall highlighting some of these conditions, and I introduced legislation in the City Council over a year ago to create an enforceable framework to improve the health and safety standards in salons. And recent reports and investigations have further highlighted these issues. We must stand together for our most vulnerable workers who are being exploited and provide them with the basic rights ensured to every New Yorker. The governor's initiative will help address this problem head on. He is bringing together agencies from all over the state to help provide information to workers and employers. Workers will have the information they need to protect themselves, employees will understand their obligations, and customers will be able to patronize nail salons without compromising their values as New Yorkers. I now have the privilege of introducing and welcoming to the podium Assemblymember Ron Kim from Flushing, Queens.
Good afternoon. As a son of immigrant small business owners who ran a grocery store for 10 years and a nail salon for another 10 years, I've seen firsthand some of the challenges facing the owners and workers of immigrant-run mom-and-pop stores in New York City. I care very deeply about fixing the hazardous working conditions and unjust wages in the nail salon caused by the bad operators. There are tens of thousands of jobs at stake. I want to take a moment to commend the owners of the salons who stand up for their workers' rights. Mr. Sang-Woo Lee, Donald Yu, for all the hard work that you put in for the last few weeks. Mr. Lee represents about 3,000 Korean-American nail salons in the city of New York as the Korean-American Nail Salon Association president. Unfortunately, due to the bad operators, an exploitable workforce, and gaps between the actual cost of the service versus the pricing of the products, too many women are denied fair pay in an ever-growing shadow economy in our city. They are also subject to serious health problems linked to the chemicals they work with every day. Thankfully, the governor and his task force of nail salons has taken the lead to enact bold reform to this industry that will protect the safety and the health of these women. And the reforms announced today are another big step forward, making our nail salons safer and healthier, setting an example for the entire nation. Unlicensed salons will be forced to close their doors, and nail salon technicians seeking to obtain licenses will be able to do so with greater ease. These injustices affect many women who work in the nail salon industry, who happen to be, the majority of them happen to be from Asian descent. I'm proud to join Governor in his fight, and that's why I'm sponsoring important legislation to protect New York's workers, which I'm working very hard with my legislative colleagues, such as Senator Brett Holman, to pass in Albany. Together with the governor, the owners, the advocates, we can transform the nail salon industry and protect the thousands of workers in our community so they can obtain the wages and the proper treatment they rightfully deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the great governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank all of you very much for taking the time to come. First to Assemblyman Ron Kim, I want to thank him very much for his leadership on this effort, and Senator Brad Hoylman, who are sponsoring a piece of legislation that will make a significant difference, and hopefully we get it done this legislative session, which ends in just a couple of weeks, which would really be a beautiful testament to government working well and government working on a timely basis. To Public Advocate Leticia James, who has led on this issue. She's talked about this particular issue for a long period of time, and the Public Advocate just gets it. She's doing a great job as the Public Advocate. She speaks for people without a voice, and let's give her a round of applause for the great work that she's doing. To our Secretary of State, Cesar Perales, who has dedicated his life to public service and has worked on every level, federal, state, city. He's done great work in the not-for-profit community, the advocacy community, and once again, he just sprang into action on this issue along with Alfonso David, so I want to thank him for their good work, and let's give them a round of applause. Now, you may say, why all this fuss about nail salons? I have no great amount of personal interaction with nail salons, I want you to know, beyond the fact that I have 3 daughters who do have quite extensive experience with nail salons. I've paid more than my share to nail salons over the past few years. My daughters spend a lot of time with Manny and Petty. I thought they were their friends, Manny and Petty. Actually not their friends. But the nail salon industry in and of itself is a problem. It's a large industry here in New York, larger in New York than any state in the country. And we're talking about thousands of people who are involved in the nail salon industry. So in and of itself, it affects many, many people and many, many lives. But it's not just nail salons, it's a broader point, and it's a bigger point. And the point is government standing up and protecting workers who cannot protect themselves. You know, this American experiment in democracy has many nuances to it. This country hangs up a large welcome sign in the harbor that the Statue of Liberty holds that says, "Give me your poor, give me your people who are willing to work hard, who don't have resources, who don't have education, and that's okay. You can work your way up in this great state of New York, in this beautiful country." The caveat to that is we have a capitalistic system that can abuse workers who are vulnerable. And it's nail salons today, but it happens all throughout society. We have an underground economy that regularly abuses workers who don't have rights, who may have a questionable legal status, and therefore they can't go to the police and they can't afford an attorney. Normally, the workers are hidden. They're in kitchens in the back of restaurants, and you don't see them. They're in small factories in the outer boroughs, and you don't see them. They're day workers who don't show up. They're laborers who you don't see. They're landscapers who you don't see. But it is a pervasive problem in society. And these are people who are dealing with tremendous hardships. They are overworked. They're exposed to dangerous conditions. They're underpaid. And they're powerless because they're anxious about their own legal immigration status, so they're afraid to go to law enforcement, and they get exploited because of that situation. I did a lot of these cases when I was in the Attorney General's office. One case we did in the AG's office, we were investigating undocumented workers who worked in the back rooms, the kitchens of some of New York's best restaurants, where the front of the restaurant, the front of the house, was magnificent, charging all sorts of money for meals, and in the back room they had undocumented workers who weren't even working the minimum, getting paid the minimum wage and working under terrible conditions. So we did an undercover operation in the Attorney General's office. And we took prosecutors, investigators who fit the profile of a possible undocumented worker, and we sent them in to be hired, and they were hired as undocumented workers, and we sent them into work to make the case as undercovers. Do you know what happened? The undercovers quit after 1 or 2 days because they couldn't do the work. They literally, physically, could not do the work that these workers were being asked to do. And we went through a number of undercovers, and everyone came back and said, we can't do it. They want us to work 7 days a week. It's around the clock. It's dangerous. It's hot. I mean, imagine that. And imagine if you had no choice. You had to do it because that's how you fed your family. And there was no one to talk to. And there was no one to call because you were afraid they would ask you about your status. And then you would have a worse problem. So the nail salon workers today, but again, the nail salon workers as a metaphor and as an example of a much deeper problem in this society that happens every day, exploitation of workers, especially workers who may be undocumented. Now, the nail salon workers in and of themselves are a serious problem. And I am proud of the action we're taking. I'm proud of the legislation that is now pending. The legislation will give the Department of State more power to police the industry. Remember, this is an industry that is supposed to have a state license. These are workers who are supposed to be licensed. The legislation will have a component that says the workers can work in an apprentice program so they can continue to work while they're applying for the license. They can obtain the license at no cost to themselves. So it's not that they have to stop working to get a license. They can do both simultaneously. And it will give the Secretary of State real power to make a real difference in policing the unscrupulous businesses. So I'm excited about the legislation. And again, want to thank Senator Hoylman, Assemblyman Kim, and we've also been joined by Senator Adriano Espaillat, who's with us, and will be moving that legislation this session, and I believe we're going to get that done. Second, we're informing workers of their rights. And the Bill of Rights that you see to my left is going to be sent to every nail salon. It has to be posted in every nail salon, and it will tell workers of their rights. And third, and what I believe may be the most powerful, is we're asking New Yorkers to help. And we're asking New Yorkers to get involved. And it's the story that the Secretary of State told you, which I've heard numerous times over the past few days, people coming up saying, what can I do? That's terrible, what's happening in nail salons. And New Yorkers get it. You walk into a nail salon, a person is performing a service, a personal service, a difficult service. It's a courtesy, a luxury for the customer. And the last thing a New Yorker is going to tolerate is abuse to a worker, especially when they're involved in it. And people have said, what can I do? And our answer is very simple. This is what you can do. You can download this card and take this card with you when you go into a nail salon. And say to the owner in the nail salon, I want to ask you 5 questions. First question, Are the workers paid the minimum wage in this business, and are they paid overtime? That's not a gift from the employer, right? That's the law. Are they paid minimum wage? Is the appropriate protective equipment, a respirator, mask, gloves, eye protection, provided to the workers? Common sense, is there adequate ventilation? No strong chemical smells? Is the salon business license posted in plain view? It is supposed to be a licensed facility. And if it is not a licensed facility, then the Department of State wants to know. And number 4 is the Nail Salon Workers' Bill of Rights, posted in plain view, which is the document that you see here. On the back of the card tells you what the minimum wage is supposed to be for a tipped worker, what the minimum wage is if you're not a tipped worker, what overtime is, and very simple rules and regulations. Download this card, bring it with you. The power of the consumer in this situation could change this situation in a matter of days. There are 3,300 nail salons in the state of New York. More nail salons than any other state. More nail salons than we have Starbucks, believe it or not. So many nail salons that, which is good news and bad news. The bad news is it's very hard for the Department of State to quickly police 3,300 nail salons. The good news is 3,300 nail salons, consumers have a choice. If there is a nail salon that is not licensed, that is abusing the workers, don't go to that nail salon. You have 3,299 other choices of nail salons. Walk down the block. Patronize good businessmen who treat their workers fairly, and don't patronize businesses that are abusing their workers. It is that simple. It is part of what we believe as New Yorkers. It's part of the immigrant culture. It's part of doing the right thing. It's part of the community of New York that we are all part of. And it is that simple. Download this from our website, or you can get it from the website Nail Salon Safety or ny.gov. Download the card, bring it with you. You don't need to speak to the worker. You can speak to the owner of the business. If the answer isn't yes, say thank you very much, walk out the door, go down the block, and patronize another business, and you will see how fast we change these industry practices. Nobody can do it faster than the consumer can do it, and no one can do it faster than the marketplace can do it. So we ask for your help. We ask you to boycott the bad businesses and boycott the companies that are exploiting their workers. And you'll see how fast we can make a difference when we come together and we all work in the same direction. I want to thank the public advocate. I want to thank Assemblyman Kim, Senator Hoylman, Senator Espaillat. I want to thank all the good business owners who have been running nail salons legally and correctly and treating their workers fairly, even though their profit margin was being undercut by the bad businesses that were actually extorting their workers, because they have been doing the right thing, so to speak, at a great cost to themselves. If we can make this difference, and we can make it quickly, this is going to be a powerful example. It's nail salons today, but I want every business out there to know we're watching, and we will not tolerate abuse of workers, and we will not tolerate the exploitation of workers who have a questionable legal status and therefore are in a vulnerable position and therefore are vulnerable to being exploited by a worker. We will not tolerate it. It is not legal, and we will enforce the law. Thank you very much for being here today.
I'm about to close the program, but I did want to recognize Senator Leroy Comrie that recently arrived. The senator is here. Thank you very much for attending. And, of course, Senator Adriano Espaillat was already recognized, and I'd recognized Senator Hoylman. With that, again, my thanks to all of you. And as the governor indicated, if we work together, we're going to make a tremendous difference in this state. Thank you very much.